Great, it's Friday the 17th of February. I had to think about that momentarily. We're in a place called Clee Hill in Shropshire, southern Shropshire. And you'd almost think like you're in Wales here, but you're not, you're actually in Shropshire still. But we're heading towards, on our quest 19 today, towards the Welsh borders. And we'll be going into Wales a bit later on to my most favourite haunt of Knighton. But at this moment in time, the start of the day, we've travelled the 3 hours worth of journeying from Cambridge to here, and we have arrived at this wonderful basic church that I guess a lot of people wouldn't even give it the time of day to look at. But it has some great history. From a personal point of view, it's got we've got Thomas de Nevill without the E. Now, bearing in mind the E was added to the Nevill family at various times throughout history. A lot of the time, the different spur-offs of the Nevill family, they didn't have the E out of protest, that they wanted to be unique, so they started a different line, but they're all part of the same line. What we'll see today as well on our journey will be Nevill, which is the Welsh equivalent of Nevill, where they adjusted it to be so people would understand and speak the surname correctly. So that would be Nevill. But we're here at Clee Hill. Thomas de Nevill without the E, was resident here in this little parish, was heavily involved in Ludlow, which was quite interesting. And most importantly, he was actually one of the king's trusted friends at that time. So that's probably a story for another day. But needless to say, you can see the church, it is quite basic. It's very cold. We can see up here to the windows. If we head over, so there's nothing from the past really showing in this church for whatever reason. I guess they put them away during the day sometimes. The only thing that I could actually find any value to of actually looking at would be this wonderful piece here. This wonderful piece here, which I find absolutely amazing. And you can tell it's the original from the way it's blown when it's been carved and shaped. Note that in this church, all the crosses are, apart from the one at the altar, they're pretty centralised as they should be. There's no sign of a Jesus dying on an alleged cross, as there should be. So that's quite interesting. We've got some windows, and quite simplistic windows for the time and the period. And the windows are, if anyone knows their Masonic geometry, would see that straight away. You've got your square circle, you know, what's the angle of 90 degrees is the fourth part of a circle, the square. We've got this window is nothing more than a geometric scale. So to look at it, it just looks pretty to the average eye, but it is actually a Masonic geometric scale. So that gives you your Masonic input there, which is quite nice. You can see from the different points of fellowship. You've got the 4 points of fellowship here, which you'd find in Freemasonry, not on the central window. If we just sort of parallel back over to there, you've got your 4 points of fellowship there, which is quite nice. I don't know how much you can see of that. You can probably zoom into that central section. I don't know how you can zoom into that to see that. Just to get that on there. Good. The first point of fellowship being brotherhood, obviously. Being the key point to the tale. Church construction, bricks and mortar, wooden vault, unit ceiling. Again, quite nice of the period, but no different to any other residence you'd see in the area, really. I quite like, and a lot of people probably miss that, I quite like the older style basic cross that's up the top there, which is just above the plinth there. But a lot of people probably just miss that, really. Quite like that. There were some people in the village, they call it a village, it's more like a suburb these days, but there were some people in the village that lost their lives through the Great War, of more recent days obviously, in World War II, and they are sort of remembered down the bottom. But I think you'll see much more memory of that over at Ludlow. So a nice little church, worth a little visit, certainly on your way through to Ludlow, on the main road there, once you tackle the sheep on the road. Great work, St Peter's church in Ludlow. Very kindly, the gentleman's actually opened the doors. It closes at midday normally, but very kindly has allowed us a short time to admire the beauty of the architecture and the structure inside. What a beautiful, beautiful church. It's a Roman Catholic church, obviously, as we can see. It's basically built, and you can see it was obviously based on the dome on the rock. And as we focus straight up there, we get the perspective of the architecture itself, which is absolutely amazing. Now, the architecture of the top there in the dome, it represents the adornment of God and Jesus and the connections between earth and heaven. And that's what it's all about, is the connection between earth and heaven, representation of that. And I just think it's such a lovely colour, and quite noticeably it's blue, because anything that's of godly value would be either black or blue. So they've represented that very well there. One thing I'd say, it's a fairly modern build in the scheme of things, but it's just so prominent to the Ludlow itself, is these wonderful plaques that they've got of the different stories and the tales as we go round. The Jesus falls a second time, the wipes the Jesus' face. Architecturalistic and acoustic-wise, that's why I'm trying to keep my voice down a little bit. Our acoustics, amazing, absolutely amazing on the design here. One thing is I particularly like, there's just some steps there to go up. One thing I particularly like is when we go up into the high altar and we see the Alpha to Omega there, which is absolutely wonderful. To see the key room with the Alpha to Omega each side, it gives me a good representation of, and just to give you a perspective of the area, it's a fairly affluent area, I'd say. I would say it's as affluent as Cambridge itself. It's one representation is of particular interest to me is the Jesus nailed to the cross, because if you look at the markings to the feet, how he's going to be, where it's going to be marked on the feet and the hands, and we often talk about the stigmata of the. This is St. Peter's in Ludlow. Very much worth a visit, but do bear in mind they're open in the mornings only generally. But to come and have a see of the architecture and the structure of the building is absolutely amazing. We're at St Edward's Church in Knighton. Now, surprisingly, obviously, they seem to like to close their churches this time of year at 4, so we were just about got in time before they closed the church. However, the church has been here, recorded since about 900 CE, or AD, whichever you want to use. So it's been here for quite some time. In particular, one of my relatives, Walter Nevill, was actually here 1869. He was born in Knighton, but sadly only lived to be 32 years old. He died in 1901, which is quite good. And the first thing that I saw in here that I liked anyway, from that point, is that Walter was very prominent in the village in his time, for his 32 years of life, and he was very much involved with all the Russian and Eastern European trade and commerce. And that might explain why we've got a wonderful Russian piece of artwork here in Knighton, because it's a bit out of place, but it takes a prominent position. And that would, I'm surmising that's probably why that's here, because there was a lot of trade and commerce with Russia and the Eastern European, or is now Eastern European states. Sadly, a lot of the original works have been either taken or covered, so there's not as many things in here as I would expect to see. Pulpit, relatively new, it's not the original one. I don't know why the original one isn't here, sadly. These are quite nice, they're Victorian period, the gilded frames there. So, you know, they're sort of turn of the century at that point, 1800 late, 1800s, 1878 onwards, into the Victorian time. Stained glass windows, yes, they are original, they're quite nice. I like them explicitly. I particularly like the gild that the Jesus is wearing or holding up on his neck there. You can see that, the gild section there with the symbology on it. Again, you very seldom find that just where he's holding it in his hand, where his smaller finger is slightly recessed to bear the weight of the gold the golden bracket, the golden plaque. So that's particularly of interest to me. I particularly like this. I mean, we've got St George's flag there, but we know St George wasn't always the patron of the area. But needless to say, we've got the St George's flag there in the background, but we've got very much almost like a Knights Templar there standing there. We've got St George slaying the dragon. How further from the truth could that be? But it's the sort of altar, and up to the high altar, that I'd almost imagine to see in a smaller cathedral, really, not in a church. It's quite nice. These are certainly original, the tiles here. Again, there's nothing here that strikes me as full-on original, sadly, in the sense to say, oh, that's really exciting to see that. You've got your usual fleur-de-lis, benches, they're quite straightforward. Then you've got this little wonderful thing that would have gone in the Victorian period. I'm only surmising 1898, 99, going into 1900s. It's not the original part of the building, but they put this in afterwards as an after effect. So it's been painted on there, it's been rendered, which is very much a Victorian rendering, and they've painted it on. So that's quite unusual to see in the church, and it's survived. Probably people like me don't go on touching it without sweaty hands. High altar, nice. I love the fact it's such a basic traditional cross. Quite nice, with a turn. Sometimes simplicity is the nicest, I think. Fresh flowers as always. So the painted windows, the stained glass windows, don't show us anything we don't already know or haven't seen at other churches, to be honest. There's nothing of any great excitement there. The only thing I thought of excitement was these particular sections of seating, which is again very rarely found in a church these days, to have the offerings, the high priests, the elder, and obviously the main priest of the area performing his service. So that's quite nice to have those seated there. Bear in mind it's an Anglican church, or church meeting. I guess a lot of the churches are suffering, really. Yes, I mean, you've got this wonderful, but you know, it's the way it is, I guess, these days. This is rather nice, and that's again relatively old from the works on it. The wonderful symbology along there. I like the fact they're using daisies, which I haven't seen before. All the way along there on the strips. But as a whole, I mean, the church, as I say, sadly, a lot of the plaques have been removed. We'll have a look in the graveyard, briefly, just to see if there's anything of interest there. I say, Walter was here, well, I say he was born here, 1869. So, St Nigel's Church, worth a visit.